Good morning, everyone, in particular the Americans, because today is January 20th, the Inauguration Day of the 47th President of the United States, and Donald Trump, Mr. Orange Man. He's coming into office. He takes power later today. Feels a little weird to be talking about that because even though I'm an American, I'm not currently in America. I'm in Colombia here, where we have a lake there. It's very, very foggy. You couldn't see any of that a couple hours ago. And yeah, it's beautiful. And yeah, I was spending some time reflecting, enjoying the jacuzzi and the cabin here last night, reflecting on all the things that have happened in Bitcoin. Just being grateful for number go up, but more importantly for the people. And anyway, I've got some thoughts about the inauguration and thought I would share those. So I think I think the Trump coin, I think the Trump meme, the Trump scam, the Trump token, whatever you want to call it, I think the Trump coin definitely puts a damper on things, at least for people in Bitcoin, right? Because it proves that Donald Trump doesn't really understand what's going on. If he actually did understand what was going on and the significance of Bitcoin, he wouldn't be promoting his own token. He would realize the marketing tactical error that would be of shooting himself in the foot. So I think that will come back to bite him. Obviously, Trump coin has pretty much only gone up so far, but it will go down at some point, right? As Peter Schiff correctly stated, and Peter Schiff is correct sometimes. As Peter Schiff correctly stated, Trump coin has gone up to $70 billion in market cap, which Bitcoin took 8 years to do. So some people are going to say Trump coin's better, but it doesn't mean it's better. It just means it's more expedient. It gained 8 years of Bitcoin's growth, but Bitcoin did it slowly and steadily, organically, in a decentralized fashion over a long period of time. Trump coin did it in a very centralized, very aggressive way. So $70 billion in Trump coin is nowhere near as secure or valuable as $70 billion of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is much more liquid, it's open, it's decentralized, and has energy back. Trump coin is not those things. But I think Trump will figure it out eventually. And I think that's what we're going to find out. Obviously, there's the rumors of day one releasing Ross Ulbricht and of the executive orders and of the strategic reserves and all that wonderful stuff. All that could definitely happen. Maybe it'll happen literally today. Maybe it will happen in the next week or so. Maybe it won't happen. But I think whatever the case, the reason you should be optimistic is because the odds have never been higher. At no other point in the last 15 years has it been acceptable to say there is a possibility today that the president's going to issue an executive order for a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And no other day in the last 15 years, 16 years, was it possible to say the president might declare he wants America to smash by 1 million Bitcoin, right? I'm not saying it's guaranteed. And I think a lot of people are speculating or betting or predicting what Donald Trump and the administration is going to do in some sort of absolutist way. And I think we like to do that because it likes to make us feel important. It likes to make us feel needed, right? I have the insider info, so I'm going to say what's going to happen. And if I'm correct, then I look like a genius because I knew before anybody else, right? Good morning to you, Rooster. And that's fine. You can make your predictions. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with that unless you're lying, right? And saying things you don't actually believe or making up evidence to back up what you believe, right? So unless you're lying, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think the much more appropriate way to look at that for yourself and for your loved ones is just talking probabilities, because we don't know. And even if we did know, even if we did have insider information from people in charge, that information could change. That could have been a lie, or they could go back on their promises. And so I don't know what Trump's going to do, but I have my guess. I think he is going to do something Bitcoin related. I think he's going to do something relatively soon about it. I don't know if it's going to be major. I don't know if it's going to be minor. But the probability objectively, you could be subjective with your opinions of what you think he's going to do, but objectively, it has never been more logical to be optimistic on the U.S. government adopting Bitcoin. I think that's a very, very safe assumption. I think that's the only thing you need to understand. Bitcoin at $100,000, $105,000, $95,000, or whatever it is right now, right? Bitcoin at this price is before the U.S. government has entered Bitcoin at a substantial level, right? Bitcoin at this price is before Russia and China and the Saudis and every other country in the world has entered Bitcoin, besides Bhutan and El Salvador. Besides those two countries, Every other country in the world is yet to enter Bitcoin in size. Now, some people, again, will go the absolutist route and say, oh, well, I think Russia's mining, or I think China's buying, or I think whatever. And okay, you can have those opinions, but objectively, even if they are already doing that in the shadows, they have not gone all in. They have not gotten an aggressive allocation, right? We would know if they have done that. We would have seen that by now on chain, in hash rate, and mining. We would have seen that by now. We would have had real suspicion. If those major behemoths of the world economy and governments were making sizable moves, we would be able to tell. So maybe they're speculating, maybe they're dabbling in it, on the down low, in quiet, right? Which to me would make a lot of sense if they're doing that. But objectively, we can say that Bitcoin at $100,000 is nowhere near the top, because all these countries are yet to get into it. You have Facebook, you have Microsoft, you have Apple, you have Amazon, you have Berkshire Hathaway, you have 20,000 other large cap companies, and you have 100 million small family business companies, right? 300 million of them, right? You have hundreds of millions of companies, tens of thousands of which are very large companies. All of them are yet to enter Bitcoin in size. And a lot of those companies have a lot of cash on the balance sheet. And at some point in the future, I think Bitcoin is going to become larger than the supply of all the dollars in existence. And I think that might be sooner than we think. I think that might be 10 years, 15 years, maybe 20 years, right? Bitcoin is going to be larger than the previous technological system before the previous technological system has faded away into irrelevance, right? I'm recording this video here. You're watching it on the internet, right? The internet is pretty much universally used around the world, right? Everyone that's joining me at this, event here, this Bitcoin retreat and hangout, all of us met on the internet, right? The internet's a pretty big deal. 60% of the world's adults use the internet. But yet, people still send checks in the mail. People still use forms of technology before the internet, right? It's like a lot of people still don't use the internet. A lot of the people using the internet don't use it to the same extent you do. And so my point is that the internet is going to be a way bigger deal before everything pre-internet is fully gone, right? It's the same thing with Bitcoin. You don't have to wait for Bitcoin to become the world's money to greatly benefit from Bitcoin, right? The internet is still not yet the entire world's communications network. And yeah, it's changed your life. It's changed your life for at least 10 to 15, probably more like 20 years ago, right? So it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's probably going to be way larger than all of the US dollars in the world, and the US dollars are still going to exist in the world, right? And they will probably still exist for decades. And a lot of Bitcoiners don't want to admit that because they think it's a zero-sum game, and they think that, just because dollars still exist means that Bitcoin's not yet widely used by the world. But I think that's what we're going to see. I think my prediction of what's going to happen, what I think is the most probable path, speaking of paths, this is a gorgeous little trail here. I like this place. We're only spending one night here, unfortunately. But anyway, I think the most probable path for what we're going to see in the long-term future is America integrates Bitcoin to some degree into our country, and we use Bitcoin to strengthen our fiat. In the same way that Michael Saylor used Bitcoin to strengthen his currency, his corporate currency, his MicroStrategy shares, I think we're going to see the Americans, and most other countries in the world, but mostly the Americans, use Bitcoin to strengthen their political currency, extend the runway of their fiat. Because that's what they want to do. They want the entire market cap of the sum total of dollars to increase in value so that they can dilute dollars more and print more dollars onto the rest of the world, which I think is gross. Here in Colombia, the median or average whatever salary, somewhere between $2,500 to $4,000. And so it definitely feels a bit strange living such a, awesome vacation and Bitcoin retreat, when so many people don't have the same income around us. But it's been really fun to also help a few locals and give them some Bitcoin and, make them really happy. And, anyway, all I have to say is that Americans dump political currency onto the rest of the world. And I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's wrong. But I'm much less interested in what's going to happen or what's not going to happen in the world. I'm much more interested in, I'm much less concerned about, am I happy or unhappy about what the world's going to do? I'm much more concerned about what the world's actually going to do. And then, going from that principle, right? And again, that all comes down to thinking of probabilities. I think that's the most probable path. I think the U.S. government is going to want to print more dollars. And I think the best way, most effective way for us to print more dollars is to buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, use that Bitcoin to better our balance sheet, give the dollars more value, increase the demand for dollars. I think stable coins are going to be a very real part of that. We're going to have all these stable coins, We're going to distribute the stable coins onto the rest of the world because the rest of the world wants dollars. People here in Colombia, they don't want Bitcoin. They don't. And they don't want the Colombian peso. They want dollars because in their experience, it's what they can understand. Back in the 1960s, one Colombian peso was $1. Now it's about 4,000 to 4,500 Colombian pesos to $1. So the Colombian peso has fallen about 4,000 times faster than the US dollar. That's how devastating these political currencies are outside the United States. And they get it. They understand. They understand that the dollar is falling in purchasing power, right? They understand that when governments print more, like they get it, right? In the same way that most Americans kind of get it, to a very, very light degree of, oh, when governments print money, the purchasing power of that money goes down, right? Like, people here are intelligent, just like anyone else, and they get it. But they're pricing it in terms of Colombian pesos, and so it looks like that the dollar is going up. It looks like the dollar is going up because they're pricing it in terms of the Colombian peso. And the best way for a family to strengthen their personal balance sheet is to hold some dollars. Obviously they need to spend Colombian pesos because that's the legal tender here, but they're saving in dollars. They're hoarding dollars. It's the exact same thing that's going to happen to Bitcoin. The exact same thing. There's going to be the political currency. It's the legal tender, right? Dollars or whatever it is in your part of the world. And you're going to hoard Bitcoin. Even though you can't spend it, you still need it because the local currency is depreciating so much faster than the currency you're using. So all that to say, I think why today's a big deal. I think why today, the day of the election, not the election, sorry, the inauguration is a big deal is that I think we're going to really see for the first time what Trump's understanding of this competing paradigm is, right? But even if he doesn't, I'm okay with that because the longer he doesn't figure it out, the more time people of the world have to buy Bitcoin. Now, of course, everything's a trade-off, and the trade-off of that is that the more time China and Russia and other countries have time to outcompete the United States. But, like I said, everything's a trade-off. The slower Trump is to act, the more time the everyday person has, and the more time every other country has. If he does come out here guns a-blazing and start with all kinds of things that were way more bullish and optimistic than we were expecting, then the people of the world don't have time. They don't have nearly as much time. You are out of time to buy Bitcoin, sub 6 figures. That's probably true. If you're watching this, you're probably too late. You're probably too late to sub 100K Bitcoin. Maybe we'll have it again. Maybe we'll have it again in the next couple weeks and months. Maybe we'll have sub 100K Bitcoin in the next bear market. Maybe we will. But even if you're optimistic that we're going to see sub 100K Bitcoin again in the next couple weeks and months and maybe in a year or two with the bear market or something, even if you think that's going to happen, which I think that may not be a best assumption to have, even if that happens, we're going to probably be spending less than 3 months cumulatively ever below 100 grand a Bitcoin again, right?